Have you ever fixed a problem at work? Everything looked fine for a few days and then exact same problem came back again. Most likely, we fixed what was visible, almost like a temporary hotfix, without going deep enough to understand what was actually causing the problem. And that's exactly where root cause analysis comes in. So in this video, we'll talk a practical scenario where customer transaction suddenly dropped by 30%. We'll use a fishbone diagram to explore possible cause and then use 5 why technique to drill deeper and identify the actual root cause. And this is not a technique only for the business analyst. If your job involves solving problem, this technique is worth knowing for everyone. So let's understand root cause analysis practically. All right. So before we start root cause analysis, we are going to talk about two techniques. First, I'm going to talk about fishbone diagram, followed by, we'll understand 5 why technique. And you're going to observe that both of these techniques are complementing one another. So before we start with these two techniques, let's first try to understand one of a theoretical definition that we have. So what is root cause analysis? It is an approach of solving the real problem by looking beyond the symptom to find what's actually causing it before fixing it. That is why, if you look at this diagram, this talks about what could be the root cause of the problem that we are observing. So to understand this, let us go ahead and try to observe one of our problem statement. A very real time, but a hypothetical scenario that we are considering. Let's assume Razorpay very recently observed that customer transaction volume had dropped by 30% over the last month compared to their usual average. Now, if you can observe, 30% drop rate is not usual. They definitely have to figure it out that what is going wrong is why this problem they are facing in the company. So what we are going to do in order to understand this is, we'll first going to talk about the fishbone diagram. Now, if you look at this particular technique, we first try to look at the given problem. So this is the problem that we identify. This is our problem statement. Again, it says customer transaction declined by 30% in last 1 month compared to usual average. So this is our problem statement. Now Razorpay hypothetically is trying to understand that what can be the possible cause. So if you look at the possible cause, the problem can be at a people level. Why do we say at a people level? Change in customer behavior, reduced customer engagement, lower transaction intent, customer adoption challenges. It could be with the process, changes in the payment or checkout process, longer processing or approval time, operational bottlenecks, policy or workflow changes. It could also be with the technology. That is, payment failures or decline, system downtime or instability, slow system performance, some issues while API or integration issues. Similarly, there can also be issue with the UX, the user experience and the product. Let's say they have recently made some changes to the product, checkout friction or complexity, poor user experience of key features. Maybe these features, they have part of their existing competitors. You never know. Okay, followed by the external factors or seasonal fluctuation. Maybe very recently in last 1 month, they are going to observe that there is going to be increase in the number of competitors they have, actively, the top 3 or top 4 competitors that they have. Economic downturn, changes in customer priority. Similarly, business. Pricing or fee change, merchant or customer segment change, reduced market or promotion, and strategic or policy changes. So again, what we are trying to understand is that for this given problem statement, there can be multiple causes, which can be this process, technology, product UX, external business. Now the challenge that we have is that for us to go and probe all of these in depth is going to take a lot of time. And that is why this is very, very important that our decisions or whatever research that we are doing, that is very, very data driven. So what we are trying to do is, we will try to track last 1 month at these level, and then we will try to identify what can be the potential reason or the cause of this given problem statement. So what we have done so far is, we created a fishbone diagram to understand that what can be the different cause that can lead to this given problem. Now, if you look at the possible cause to, again, this hypothesis that we are making, So based on, again, different parameters, people, process, technology, product user experience, external business, which of course, all of these are data backed. If this was the problem statement, we observed that the decline started around the time of KYC re-verification campaign. Now let us try to understand what do I mean by saying KYC re-verification campaign. So I'll just take you through one of our message. So pretty much, if we go through this, let's say the customers of Razorpay few weeks prior have received this message on their WhatsApp followed by their email. It says, only a few days left to complete re-KYC as per recent RBI guideline. Completion your KYC is mandatory to keep the Razorpay account active and continue accepting payment seamlessly, which means they realized this particular notification was sent to a lot of their customers, and they have observed that in last 1 month of them, after performing this re-KYC to their Razorpay platform, is one of a reason. Maybe they have not identified it yet, but they are trying to consolidate in that given direction that this could be one of a major cause to this. So that is where, if I come back to this, it says the decline started around the time of KYC re-verification campaign. Now, customer prompted for KYC show a significant higher decline, higher transaction observed during after KYC prompt. That is where we are saying that this could be one of a possible cause. So as we tried narrowing down that one of a cause could be the re-KYC process. Now what we're going to do is this hypothesis or this given cause that we identified, we are going to probe into more depth. So what we are able to achieve as of now, we had a problem statement and we were trying to identify what can be the potential reasons or cause of this given problem statement. Now with a data-backed decision or the research we did, we came to the conclusion that KYC verification could be one of that. But as of now, we are saying that it could be. We are not pretty sure on that. And that is where now if we go through the 5I technique. The first question, again, how do we perform this 5I technique? We're going to put problem statement as the first, and then we're going to ask question, which is more like a follow-up question, 5 times to reach to a conclusion. Practically speaking, you call it 5I technique, but there can also be a scenario that maybe just asking 4 times or sometimes 6 times, pretty much you are able to reach to the conclusion or the root cause of what could be the reason of the problem statement. So again, 5 is, I would say, the most common, but practically it can be 4 or 6 attempts of you asking why. So again, let's try to understand that in a piece. Okay. So the problem statement that we had was why the customer transaction is less. Again, the 30% that we observed. Now it says because many customers are unable to complete KYC verification, so their transactions are blocked. Now it says KYC incomplete customer shows significant higher decline in transaction. Now let's understand that with this given problem. The question is why customer unable to complete their KYC verification. It says because their upload document are not getting successfully processed in the system. Now the question why they are not able to upload document. It says why the uploaded document not getting successfully processed? Because some documents are rejected by backend due to a validation rule. One of a validation rule is that they should not be, uploading any of the document more than 2 MB, let's say. Now, and again, it says that the validation rule in the backend. Now, why do I say backend? We'll understand that, in the next statement we have. Now, it says why customer not aware that their documents are getting rejected. Now, this is a question that, think it this way. What we are trying to say is that the customers are not even aware that they are failing their re-KYC. So on the UI, they believe or they are in the impression that they have already successfully completed the re-KYC process. However, if you look at this given problem statement, it says why the customer not aware their documents are rejected? Because the front end shows document upload successfully even when the backend rejects it. And that is where why the front end shows success even when the backend got rejected, because front end and backend validation rule and error handling are inconsistent. Now, team, this is one of a hypothetical scenario. I know that companies cannot try to afford, like these major sort of issues happening. However, we were just trying to think that hypothetically, what could be the possible reason of their transaction dropping by 30%? So we identified using 5i technique that the real cause was re-KYC process. And after our verification, we get to know that this is the real cause of this given problem. And that is why we are pretty much going to fix this given thing. So that is where, what is the root cause? Inconsistent validation and error handling between the front end and back end cause document that failed back end rule to be accepted by the UI and reported as successful, leaving KYC status incomplete and blocking transaction. So that is where I hope we all of us got a very fair understanding that for one given problem statement, how we were able to use the combination of, very initially, we tried using the concept of fishbone, where we understood that what can be the different cause of it. And once we tried narrowing it down, that this is one of a potential cause is where to probe and to dig it even deeper, we used 5y in order to reach to a level to identify what is the root cause. And that is pretty much going to make a temporary fix to this given problem. Now, the question is, how are we supposed to respond to this given question in our interview? So as we can already observe that if you look at business analyst, again, watching this video, you might think that, this is only question that we can expect in our interview. However, if your job involves problem solving, be it you are working as a product owner, product manager, you're working in non-IT, this question can be asked if, that involves too much of operation roles, and also how you're going to respond to it in a sample way, which is not just for BA. Any professional revolving around a given problem or this approach can try to stick to this given response. So look at this. How are we going to respond to this question? It says, in a recent situation, I noticed that customer transaction volume had dropped by around 30%. Instead of assuming the reason, I first defined the problem and explored the possible cause using a fishbone diagram. Based on the data, KYC emerged as a potential contributing factor. I then used the 5i technique to drill down and found that customers were seeing a successful document submission on the UI, while the backend was actually rejecting some document due to validation issues. This resulted in KYC remaining incomplete and eventually affecting their ability to transact. So the root cause was inconsistent between the front end and back end validation and error handling. I would then recommend fixing that underlying issue rather than simply asking customer to retry their KYC. So the next time you encounter a problem at work, don't immediately jump to the solution. First, understand the problem, explore the possible cause using techniques like fishbone diagram, validate them with the data, and then keep asking why until you reach the actual root cause. Because if you only fix the symptom, the problem may come back again. But if you identify and fix the root cause, you are not just solving the problem for today, you are preventing it from happening again. And that's the real purpose of root cause analysis. So if you found this practical, let me know in the comment section which business analysis or problem solving technique you would like me to explain next. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.